Today, let's take a look at your urine collection and composition accordingly. Okay, your urine that is made of 95% water and 5% solutes accordingly. And yes, the solutes or the concentration of solutes that is present in your urine is influenced by these factors. You have your dietary intake, physical activity, metabolism of the body, endocrine functions, and even body position. All of this, okay, and so will influence the concentration of your urine composition accordingly. Let's take a look at your organic components. Your urea, that is the major organic component present in the urine. And yes, it accounts for 60 to 90% of the organic components. Aside from urea, you have creatinine, hippuric acid, carbohydrates, pigments, fatty acids, mucin, enzymes, and hormones. Okay, with that being said, that your urea, that is a major organic component present in the urine, in case that you're in doubt of a sample, let's say you are working in the drug testing laboratory and you're in doubt of a urine sample and you need to verify a sample. Again, to verify that a sample submitted is urine, you test for its urea and creatinine content. Okay, because accordingly, urea and creatinine content present in your urine is higher than in any other body fluid. Again, urea and creatinine content is higher in urine than in any other body fluid. And yes, comparing it with your plasma, the urea and creatinine content present in your urine is 50 times than that of your plasma accordingly. That is for your organic components of the urine. To your inorganic components, your chloride, that is the major inorganic component. Again, your chloride, that is the major inorganic component. And yes, your sodium chloride, that is your principal salt. Again, your sodium chloride is your principal salt. Other than your chloride, you have your potassium, your sulfate, phosphates, ammonium, magnesium, calcium, and sodium accordingly. Okay, and so as for your second major inorganic component, you have sodium and then followed by your potassium. Again, in order, your chloride, that is the major inorganic component, is the most numerous, or it has the highest concentration, followed by your sodium and then your potassium accordingly. Please note that urine also contains hormones, as what we said earlier, vitamins, medications, and formed elements like cells, casts, bacteria, crystals, and mucus. And yes, when these elements are increased, they may indicate a presence of a disease accordingly. Your urine collection for routine urine analysis should be, okay, the container should be clean, dry, leak-proof. And yes, disposable containers are recommended because they eliminate the chance of contamination due to improper washing. Also, the sample container should be wide mouth and a wide flat bottom to prevent overturning. And yes, it should be made of clear material to what they call this allow for easy determination of the color and clarity of the sample, and the recommended capacity is 50 ml. Please note that a screw cap is better than snap-on lids accordingly. Okay, and yes, for microbiologic samples or microbiologic urine studies like urine culture and sensitivity, okay, please make use of sterile containers with, again, secure closures. Also, sterile containers are also suggested if more than 2 hours elapse between the specimen collection and analysis accordingly. Yes, please note that labels must be attached to the container, not on the lid, because there is a possibility that there is that you will interchange the lid of your urine containers. Okay, your patient's name. The label should carry your patient's name and identification, the date and time of collection, and additional information like the age of the patient, the location, and the physician's name accordingly. Again, labels should be attached on the container, on the body of the container, not on the lid accordingly. And yes, please note that request forms must accompany your samples. Again, request forms must accompany your samples delivered to the laboratory. And the time the specimen is received accordingly should be recorded on the form. Okay, please note again, properly labeled collected specimens should be rejected by the laboratory and request for a new specimen. Okay, here are criteria of sample or specimen rejection. Specimens that are unlabeled or specimens in an unlabeled container, they should be rejected. Okay, also non-matching labels and requisition form. If you receive such, okay, in case of an inpatient, admitted patient, you call the you call you call the ward and tell them that you reject the sample. Okay, specimens contaminated with feces or toilet paper. Okay, again, it should not be contaminated, and containers with contaminated exteriors, specimens of insufficient quantity or quality not sufficient, as we call QNS in the laboratory, because again, if it is not sufficient, we cannot run the sample. Okay, specimens that have been improperly transported accordingly are also rejected in the laboratory. Okay, that urine is easily collected. That is why if there are inconsistencies between the sample, I mean the labels of the sample and the requisition form, you reject right away. Or if there are inconsistencies in the sample, there are contamination in the sample, you reject right away and request for a new specimen. As to your sample handling, please note that urine, this one is a biologic fluid. And please note, standard precautions should be followed here. Okay, specimen must be sent to the laboratory and tested within 2 hours. Yes, please note that it should be tested within 2 hours. Within 2 hours. And yes, you preserve the specimen by refrigeration or use of an appropriate chemical preservative if not tested right away, because changes may occur if not properly preserved. I mean, 2 hours, after 2 hours, then changes may occur if not properly preserved. And again, for sample handling, please note standard precautions. Gloves should be worn at all times when working with urine accordingly. Okay, and so yes. Please note that if the sample is not properly preserved, the following changes may occur. Or unpreserved at room temperature for longer 2 hours, the following changes may occur. You have here your increased analytes, you have the odor. Please note that this one is caused by bacterial multiplication, causing the breakdown of urea to ammonia. Again, bacterial multiplication or breakdown of urea to ammonia accordingly. pH is also increased in case it is unpreserved. You have this one is caused by breakdown of urea to ammonia by urease producing bacteria. Please note that ammonia, this one is alkaline in nature. Okay, or in case of pH also, the loss of carbon dioxide or escape of carbon dioxide will raise the pH. Nitrite is also increased. This one is caused by multiplication of nitrate, reducing bacteria accordingly. From nitrate, it is reduced to nitrite. And then you have your bacteria. They are increased, of course, because your microorganisms will multiply accordingly. Decreased analytes, you have the clarity. Please note that this one, the decrease of the clarity of your sample in an unpreserved sample, sorry, is caused by bacterial growth and precipitation of amorphous material. Okay, and so as for the clarity, your glucose is also decreased because of course your microorganisms, they use the glucose present or bacterial use and glycolysis. These are the causes. For your ketones, they are also decreased due to volatilization and bacterial metabolism also. Your bilirubin, they are also decreased due to exposure to light or photooxidation to biliverdin accordingly. Your urobilinogen, this one is oxidized to urobilin accordingly. As for your red cells and WBCs, they disintegrate in dilute alkaline urine. Your red cells and your WBCs, they disintegrate in alkaline urine. Also, your cast, okay, if they are present, they will also disintegrate. They disintegrate also in alkaline urine. As for the presence of parasite, or sorry, your trichomonas, okay, if unpreserved in longer than 2 hours, then you have its loss of motility. As for your trichomonas, it will lose its motility. Okay, and so as for the color is modified or darkened in an unpreserved urine due to the oxidation or reduction of metabolites present. Let's take a look at your urobilinogen, that if it is oxidized, it will produce your urobilin, which will cause a darker color accordingly. And yes, please note that your protein, that is the least affected analyte in an unpreserved urine sample. Sorry, again, urine, that is the least affected analyte in an unpreserved urine sample. For your sample preservation, please note that the specimens should be delivered and tested within 2 hours. If not, the specimen should be refrigerated or you add a chemical preservative. As for physical preservation, you have refrigeration at 2 to 8 degrees Celsius. Other references use 4 to 6 degrees Celsius. For refrigeration, it decreases bacterial growth and metabolism. Yes, it is bacteriostatic accordingly. And yes, please note that if urine is to be cultured, it should be refrigerated during the transit and held refrigerated until cultured up to 24 hours. Again, if the urine sample is to be cultured, it should be refrigerated during transit and held refrigerated until culture for up to 24 hours accordingly. For refrigeration, it will increase the specific gravity when measured using hydrometer. Okay, this one is caused by precipitation of amorphous phosphates and amorphous urates accordingly. As for your amorphous phosphates, they are white precipitates, and your amorphous urates, they are pink precipitates accordingly. Please note that before testing, the specimen must return to room temperature. Again, before chemical testing, using your reagent strip, the specimen must return to room temperature before chemical testing. This one will allow or will correct your specific gravity and may dissolve some of the amorphous urates that have precipitated. Example, your chemical preservation. Please note that the routine use of preservatives is not recommended. Okay, and so But then, if inevitable, you have here your ideal preservative. An ideal preservative should be bactericidal. They should inhibit your urease. They should preserve the formed elements present in the urine. And then they should not interfere with the chemical tests accordingly. Okay, let's take a look at the chemical preservatives. You have here your thymol first on the list, as this one preserves glucose and sediments well. And please note it does not interfere with reagent strip test for proteins or when you make use, of course, of your dipstick. But then please note that your thymol interferes with acid precipitation tests for proteins. Example of your acid precipitation test for proteins, you have your SSA method and the heat and acetic acid test for proteins. And yes, you make use of one small crystal for your sample. Okay, let's move on to your boric acid. Your boric acid, this one preserves proteins and formed elements well accordingly. That is for your boric acid. And yes, it prevents bacterial growth and metabolism. With that, it is ideal for bacterial culture and sensitivity. Okay, and so yes, please note that it may precipitate crystals when you use it in large amount accordingly. And yes, also it interferes with hormone and drug analysis. Again, it interferes with hormone and drug analysis. As to As to other parameters, please note that boric acid does not interfere with routine analysis other than your pH. Please note that it does not interfere with routine analysis other than your pH. Please note that boric acid interferes with your pH as this one keeps the pH at 6.0. Again, your boric acid keeps the pH of your sample at 6.0. That is why it will interfere with your reading, with your pH reading. Okay, and so your boric acid is bacteriostatic at 18 grams per liter. Again, it is bacteriostatic at 18 grams per liter, and this one can be used for culture transport. You have here your formalin. Please note that your formalin, this one is an excellent sediment preservative. But then please note that it is a reducing agent. Your formalin is a reducing agent, thereby it will interfere with the chemical tests for glucose, blood, leukocyte esterase, and copper reduction tests accordingly. Okay, that is for your formalin. Please note that when you use in too large or in large what you call this large concentration, it will precipitate your proteins. It will precipitate the proteins. Okay, and so make use of 1 drop of formalin per 30 ml. Or you rinse the specimen container with formalin to preserve your cells and cast. Again, rinse your specimen container with formalin to preserve the cells and casts accordingly. Of course, your formalin is a reducing agent, thereby you will expect a false negative result. Okay, false negative result on blood, urobilinogen, and the rest of some tests that are interfered. Okay, next you have your toluene. Toluene, okay, please note that it does not interfere with routine tests. But then, the disadvantage, it floats on the surface and clings to pipettes and testing materials. And yes, please note that this one is not effective against bacteria that are already present in the urine. Okay, and so just a comment for this one, please note it is a flammable, a fire hazard. Okay, and so as for uh, the concentration, or you make use of 2 ml toluene per 100 ml of urine. Okay, sodium fluoride. Your sodium fluoride here is it prevents glycolysis. Accordingly, sodium fluoride prevents glycolysis, and this one is a good preservative for drug analysis. Okay, good preservative for drug analysis accordingly. Yes. Okay, and so as for A disadvantage of your sodium fluoride, it inhibits the reagent strip test for glucose, blood, and leukocytes accordingly. Of course, you expect that it will give you a false negative result. Okay? As when you make use of reagent strip testing, instead of using a sodium fluoride, please make use of sodium benzoate. Again, please make use of sodium benzoate instead of sodium fluoride for reagent strip testing. Okay, that is for sodium fluoride. And then you have your phenol. Your phenol does not interfere with a routine test, but it causes an odor change. It causes an odor change accordingly. Your phenol, you make use of 1 drop per ounce of your sample accordingly. Of your commercial preservative tablets. For your commercial preservative tablets, please note that they are convenient when refrigeration is not possible. Okay, and yes, these commercial preservative tablets may contain one or more of the following preservatives, including sodium fluoride. The following, of course, the ones that we talked earlier. Okay, and yes, please also, with that being said, that it contains one or more of the following preservatives, including sodium fluoride, it is important for you to check the tablet composition to determine possible effects on your desired tests accordingly. CNS tube accordingly. Please note that the sample is stable at room temperature for 48 hours. And yes, it preserves bacteria, but then do not use if the urine sample is below minimum fill line. Okay, the preservatives employed here are boric acid, sodium borate, and sodium formate. With that being said, it will decrease the pH of your urine sample accordingly. Okay, you have your urine collection kits. These kits contain collection cup, C&S preservative tube, or UA tube accordingly. Okay. Okay, you have your yellow plain UA tube accordingly. They are used on automated urine instruments and must refrigerate within 2 hours. And please note it has a round or conical bottom. And yeah, there is no preservative employed accordingly. It is just a plain UH. Then you have your cherry red or yellow top tube. The sample is stable for 72 hours at room temperature, and yes, instrument or machine compatible. And please note that bilirubin and urobilinogen may be decreased if the specimen is exposed to light and left at room temperature. And yes, the preservative employed, you have your sodium propionate, ethyl paraben, and chlorhexidine accordingly. Same with your gray CNS tube, it has a round or conical bottom accordingly. Your Sacumano fixative. Your Sacumano fixative is made of your carbowax and 15% ether. Okay, and yes, it preserves your cellular elements accordingly, and it is utilized for cytology studies. In case of cytology, you need at least 50 ml of urine sample. Okay, please note that formalin, this one is the preservative employed for a discount. Again, formalin, that is the preservative employed for a discount. Okay, let's take a look at your urine specimen collection techniques. First on the list is your routine void. Your routine void here does not require patient preparation. Just tell your patient to go and urinate. Okay, just void, have a sample, and that's it. Okay, again, have the patient urinate into an appropriate container. And please you note that this one is used for routine urine analysis. Okay, and so it can be a random sample or a first morning urine specimen. Midstream clean catch. Your midstream clean catch, this one is utilized if there is a possibility of contamination accordingly. Okay, and so please note that this is a safer, less traumatic method of obtaining urine for bacterial culture and routine urine analysis. And yes, also, it has less contamination by epithelial cells and bacteria. Please note that when midstream clean catch is done properly, the technique will eliminate the sources of contamination and will provide you a very good specimen or an excellent specimen for routine urine analysis and urine culture. Okay, and so but then please note that you need to provide your patients with the appropriate cleansing material, a sterile container, and you need to provide the instruction also. No? Okay, and so as for your appropriate cleansing material, you need to the cleansing material should not be strong. You need the strong material, I mean, sorry, the cleansing material should not be a strong bacterial agent like hexachlorophene or povidone iodine. Okay, again, you should not provide your patient with strong bacterial agents like hexachlorophene or povidone iodine. Instead, you provide your patient with mild towelettes accordingly. They are accordingly the recommended ones, mild towelettes. Okay, a sterile container should be provided also, and instructions on voiding and cleansing. Okay, you instruct your patient. Okay, before the collection of your midstream clean catch, you tell your patient to clean the glans penis of the male or the urethral meatus of the female. Okay, thoroughly cleansed and rinsed accordingly. Of course, you follow the cleansing procedure accordingly. Okay, yes, and then you instruct your patient to uh, pass some urine into the toilet. First, pass some urine into the toilet, and then stop or hold, and then urinate the mid portion into the specimen container. Okay, and so please, to prevent contamination of the container and the sample, the interior of the container must not come in contact with the patient's hands or perineal area accordingly. Okay, once after what you call this, after filling the urine container, any remaining urine must be or should be passed in the toilet accordingly. Okay, and so with that, the midstream portion, okay, please note that the midstream portion is a representative, or it contains representative elements and analytes from the urinary bladder, ureters, and the kidneys accordingly. Again, please note that when your midstream clean catch is done properly, it will eliminate the sources of contamination and will provide you an excellent sample for routine urine analysis and bacterial culture accordingly. Okay, you have here images on how to do your midstream clean catch. Pardon, I I included an image with Spanish language. Sorry. Okay. Catheterization. Please note that a sterile catheter is inserted through the urethra into the bladder accordingly. Or again, you pass a catheter or hollow tube through the urethra into the bladder. And yes, the urine flows directly from the bladder through the indwelling catheter and accumulates in a plastic reservoir accordingly. And yes, it is either urethral or urethral accordingly. Please note that this one is a most commonly used to your uh, this technique is most commonly used to obtain a sample for bacterial culture accordingly. Again, this technique is most commonly used to obtain a sample for bacterial culture. As for urethral, please note that a catheter is inserted into the bladder via the urethra, and the urine flows directly from the urinary bladder through the catheter into the plastic bag, into the plastic reservoir. And yes, this one is utilized for bacterial and fungal cultures and routine screening also. As for urethral, a catheter is inserted through the urethra and the bladder to collect the urine directly from the left or right ureters. Okay, again, a catheter is inserted through the urethra and bladder to collect urine directly from the left or right ureters accordingly. This one is utilized to differentiate kidney infections. Okay, this urethral catheterization technique is used to differentiate kidney infections accordingly, if that is a infection in the right or infection on the left kidney accordingly. Again, to check the kidneys individually. This one is an illustration of a urethral catheterization. From the urinary bladder, the urine is collected will or passed. The urine will pass through the catheter to a collection bag or to the reservoir. Okay. Yes, this one is for your urethral catheterization, for your bladder. And then you have your suprapubic aspiration. For your suprapubic aspiration, there is what we call this puncturing of the abdominal wall and distended bladder using a needle and syringe. Again, your suprapubic aspiration, the sample here is collected by external introduction of a needle through the abdomen into the bladder. And please note that this one provides a sample for bacterial culture that is completely free of extraneous contamination because the bladder is sterile in normal conditions. Again, this one is for bacterial culture, particularly anaerobic bacterial culture accordingly. And yes, suprapubic aspiration can be utilized to obtain samples for cytologic examination. Again, for cytologic examination, urine cytologic exam, you need 50 ml of urine. Okay, that is for your suprapubic aspiration accordingly. Is an image of suprapubic aspiration. Okay, and so you have here the bladder, you have the needle here. Okay, and so it is inserted in the abdominal, introduced in the abdominal region. Okay. Okay, for pediatric collection, please note that there are patients who are unable to urinate voluntarily. And yes, you have commercially available plastic urine collection bags with hypoallergenic skin adhesive. Okay, these ones are utilized for patients who are unable to urinate voluntarily. Okay, and yes, how is this done? Please note you should clean the patient's perineal area, and you also need to dry before you place the specimen bag or you attach the specimen bag onto the skin. Okay, the bag is placed over the penis in the male and around the vagina in the female. In case of the females, please do not include the anal area. Okay, the adhesive again is firmly attached to the perineum accordingly. Once it's good, then you check every 15 minutes. Okay, once the bag is full, the specimen should be removed as soon as possible after collection and be labeled and transported to the laboratory. Okay, that is for your pediatric collection. Of course, that is for kids. Okay, sample of your urine or your wee bag for pediatric collection. Types of urine specimen. First on the list, you have your random. Your random samples. Okay, they are the most commonly received specimen. Okay, because of course there is an ease of collection and convenience. Okay, for the patient. And yes, this one is collected at any time. Okay, and yes, they are useful for routine screening tests to detect obvious abnormalities. And yes, this is affected by dietary intake or physical activity just before collection. And yes, again, this one is utilized for qualitative analysis accordingly. Your first morning urine or your 8-hour specimen. Your first morning urine or your 8-hour specimen. This is the ideal screening specimen. This is your ideal screening specimen. This is ideal sample for routine urine analysis. An ideal specimen for pregnancy test. Please note that this one, your first morning urine, is utilized to prevent false negative pregnancy test accordingly. And yes, because it is concentrated and acidic. It is ideal for detection of chemicals and formed elements that may not be present in a dilute random specimen. And yes, this is also utilized for evaluating orthostatic proteinuria. And yes, it is collected immediately upon arising from bed. Okay. Also, it preserves casts and cells accordingly. Okay. And so due to what we call this, the acidity, it will preserve your cast and cells because your cast and cells, they disintegrate in alkaline urine. Okay, and then you have your fasting or your second morning urine. This one is the second voided specimen after a period of fasting. Please note that it does not contain any metabolites from the food ingested before the beginning of fasting period. And yes, it is recommended for glucose monitoring. And it is also an ideal sample for urine cytology accordingly. Your 2-hour postprandial. This one is collected shortly before consuming a routine meal, and you collect again 2 hours after eating the meal accordingly. That is for your 2 hours postprandial. This one is utilized for monitoring insulin therapy in diabetic patients accordingly. Yes, and then you have your glucose tolerance specimen. They are collected to correspond with blood samples drawn during an OGTT. Okay, again to correspond. That is why when is this done? Glucose, when is this done? When is this collected? It is collected when OGTT is uh, performed. Okay, oral glucose tolerance test is performed accordingly. Okay, it may include fasting, half hour, 1 hour, 2 hour, and 3 hour samples. Okay, again, because to correspond in OJTT, okay, and so in OJTT, there are samples. You need to draw blood sample for fasting, and then ask the patient to drink the glucose load, and then you collect after 1 hour of you collect blood sample after 1 hour, and then after 2 hours or after 3 hours. It depends on the institution protocol. Okay, and so also in glucose tolerance urine specimen, okay, you also need to do such. You need to collect urine samples. Okay, and so again, to correspond with your OJTT blood samples. Again, the urine samples, the glucose tolerance specimen should be tested for glucose and ketones accordingly. 24-hour urine sample. 24-hour urine sample is required for analytes that exhibit diurnal variations and are affected by changes brought about by daily activities like exercise, meals, and body metabolism. Examples of analytes, you have the catecholamines, 17-hydroxysteroids, and electrolytes, which are lowest in the morning, early morning, and highest in the afternoon. Please note that in 24-hour urine collection, the patient must be instructed on the procedure for collecting a timed sample. First, it must begin and end, the patient must begin and end the collection period with an empty bladder. Okay, first, of course, have the patient completely empty the urinary bladder and then discard the urine. Okay, have the patient completely empty the urinary bladder and then discard that urine. Okay, and then collect all urine samples voided during the next 24 hours, including the last sample voided exactly at the conclusion of the 24-hour period. Okay. You collect the sample voided exactly at the conclusion of the 24-hour period. Please note that addition of urine before the start of collection will cause false increased results, and addition of urine after the end of the collection period will cause false decrease result. Okay, please note also that all samples should be refrigerated or kept on ice during the collection period and may also require addition of a chemical preservative. Okay, of course, once you receive the sample in the laboratory, you allow it to return to room temperature, and then you mix the sample. Let's say, for example, you have you receive two bottles. Okay, two bottles of urine or two urine in a separate container. You mix the two urine. You mix it in a basin. Yes, you mix it in a basin, and then you alicot. You get an alicot of the sample, and then you test. Okay, sorry. Back to your 24-hour urine sample. Let's say, for example, you started at 7 a.m. today, 7 in the morning today. Okay, you end 7 in the morning today. Your ending should be tomorrow. The conclusion of your collection should be tomorrow at 7 in the morning also. Okay, you collect all the urine samples from uh after emptying your urinary bladder until the next day at 7 a.m. Okay, that is for your 24-hour urine collection. And then you have your 12-hour urine. This one is utilized for a discount. Okay, and so 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. or just 12 hours accordingly. Okay, that is for your 12-hour urine, and this is for a discount. Your a discount utilizes your hemocytometer. Then you have your afternoon specimen, your 2 to 4 p.m. This one is for urobilinogen determination accordingly. Again, your afternoon specimen is for urobilinogen determination because urobilinogen excretion is enhanced in alkaline urine. The specimen of choice for quantifying or monitoring is a 2-hour collection following your midday meal. Okay, at 2 to 4 p.m. This one, your 2 to 4 p.m. is your alkaline tide. Okay, this collection correlates with the typical alkaline tide or alkaline pH observed in urine after meals accordingly. Prostatitis specimen, your 3-glass collection technique. This one is utilized to determine prostatic infection. You have your first sample, that is the first portion of the urine, the second specimen, that is your midstream portion of the urine, and then the third specimen, that is this time you need to massage the prostate. The third specimen is what you call this, you need to massage the prostate. The prostate is massaged so that the prostate fluid will be passed with the remaining urine. Okay, so in the third specimen, that is a mixture of a prostate fluid and the remaining urine. Quantitative cultures are performed on all the specimens on what they call this first specimen, second, and third specimen. And microscopic examination should be done on the first and third specimen only. Microscopic examination is done on first and third specimen only. The second specimen is used as a control for bladder and kidney infection. If the second specimen is positive, the results from the third specimen are invalid because infected urine has contaminated the sample accordingly. Okay, and so prostatic infection accordingly is Prostatic infection accordingly is given if the number of WBC and bacteria in the third specimen is 10 times greater than that of the first specimen. Okay, again, prostatic infection if the number of WBC and bacteria in the third specimen is 10 times greater than that of the first specimen. Samimir's 4-glass localization method. Still, this one is a test for prostatitis or to determine prostatic infection. This is a variation of your 3-glass collection technique. accordingly. How is this done? The first urine specimen is voided bladder 1. The first urine specimen is voided bladder 1. This one is 10 ml, which represents the urethral specimen. After collecting 10 ml for voided bladder 1, the patient voids another 100 to 150 ml urine. Please note this 100 to 150 ml urine is not collected. After voiding that 100 to 150 ml urine, the second specimen, which you call as voided bladder 2, is collected. And this one is again another 10 ml that represents your bladder specimen. And then the third sample, sorry, the third specimen is your EPS, or your expressed prostatic secretion. This one is the fluid collected during prostatic massage. Your expressed prostatic specimen is the fluid collected during prostatic massage. During this time, you need to massage the prostate accordingly. Okay, and then your VB3, your voided urine 3, this one is collected after prostatic massage accordingly. Okay, and so for your VB1, this one is tested for urethral infection or inflammation. Your VB2 for tested for urinary bladder infection. And then your express prostatic secretion, this one is cultured and examined for WBCs. Please note that greater than 10 to 20 WBCs per high power field is considered abnormal. And your VB3, this one is again your post-prostatic massage urine specimen accordingly. Okay, that is for your Stamimers for glass localization technique. Of your pre and post massage test accordingly, your PPMT, it utilizes two glass only. For this one, a clean catch midstream urine is collected, and second urine is collected after the prostate is massaged. Okay, positive result. If bacteriuria in the post-massage specimen is 10 times greater than the pre-massage count accordingly. That is for your pre and post-massage test. Drug specimen collection. Please note that the urine drug specimen should be free of tampering, free of any forms of tampering. Examples of specimen tampering will include substitution of the sample, adulteration or dilution of the sample, or yes, okay? And so you have here your chain of custody. This one is a process that provides documentation of proper sample identification from the time of collection to the receipt of laboratory results. Okay, and so until, of course, you need to keep the integrity of the sample. Okay, this one is a standardized form, your chain of custody, that must document and accompany every step of drug testing, from the collector to the courier to the laboratory to the medical review officer to the employer accordingly. And yes, urine specimen collection may be witnessed or unwitnessed, and bluing agent is added to the toilet water reservoir to prevent specimen adulteration. Okay, as for the volume of the urine for drug specimen for drug testing, it is, or drug analysis, it is 30 to 45 ml, and the capacity of the container is 60 ml. The temperature which should be taken within 4 minutes is 32.5 degrees Celsius to 37.7 degrees Celsius, and the color should be inspected to identify any signs of contaminants, like of course the bluing dye that is uh, added to the toilet water. Okay, and yes, please note that if the specimen temperature is out of range, or the specimen is suspected to have been diluted or adulterated, or yes, okay, and so a new specimen must be collected, and the supervisor should be notified. Okay, that is for your drug specimen collection. And yes, that is for your urine specimen collection and composition. Okay, thank you. And yes, see you around. Tara, akyat tayo.